The implementation of our play-by-play may seem a little daunting. However, it does follow a recognizable pattern, so I'm going to walk you through this pattern. Let's begin by launching WISE 2017.1.4 and beginning to create a new project. I want to call this project Baseball, and we're going to save it in our baseball folder. I'm going to create a new one here that's called wise underscore baseball. And we'll click on create, choose. We're not dealing with a Windows platform. We need to make this for the Mac. And we do not need to use any of the plugins. So it's going to chug for a second. And once the program launches, I will then be able to tell you what to do next. Okay. As you can see here, our license manager popped up. And normally, when we're in trial mode, we don't need to worry about the number of assets that we're going to be dealing with on these projects. However, this is a rather large project, so it does behoove us to go ahead and retrieve a license key for it. This course is registered with audiokinetic.com. If we go to audiokinetic.com and you log in, you'll see a thing here that says project licenses. You can then go ahead and search by the school and look for this specific class. And when you do so, you can then look to get a license key. I'm going to click to get a license key, at which point it will give me this item right here. So I am going to copy this. And if I come back over to the license manager, I can paste it from the clipboard, and it now has been saved with the proper license. This allows me to have more than the 200 media assets for the project, and it also qualifies me to get tech support from Audio Kinetic if necessary. Okay, we're going to now begin the implementation process by importing a series of assets. We're going to do this one step at a time. So the first thing we'll go ahead and take a look at is what we currently have in my audio assets folder. I have a small number of the audio assets. We're going to first populate a small group, one of our lines, vocal phrase 1. So what I'm going to do, if we take a listen to it,
It's the bottom of the first. It's the bottom of the first. It's the bottom of the first.
I'm going to bring these 3 takes in to the program. I'm going to import them by dragging them right into the actor mixer. And when I do so, I'm going to minimize this. We'll click on import. And based off of the way that we've named them, the audio object will also be named identically.
It's the bottom of the first. It's the bottom of the first. It's the bottom of the first.
Now, I want to be able to randomize these, so I'm going to press Shift and click on each one of the objects to select them all as a whole, and I am now going to right-click on this, and I can create a new parent. In this case, I'm going to group all of these together in a single random container. This random container will be called phrase underscore 01, phrase A underscore line underscore 01. When this phrase line is triggered, it's going to randomly select and play back one of those 3 lines.
It's the bottom of the first.
Excuse me, I should say take.
It's the bottom of the first. It's the bottom of the first.
And so on and so forth. So I'm going to now go ahead and do the same thing for yet another possible line, and we'll then create a randomizer for that second line. So we will, oops, I hit the wrong thing. I'm very sorry, guys. We're going to now drag in our phrase 2 into the actor mixer, and we're going to do the same process again as we did for this one, but this one is going to be placed in a random container that is called phrase underscore A underscore line underscore 02. And if we go ahead and listen to this. Once again, we have
It's the bottom of the second. It's the bottom of the second. It's the bottom of the second.
we have two possible choices for the different lines and three possible takes for each of those lines. We're going to now randomize which of these lines gets played by introducing yet another random container. So we're going to now go and place these in their own random container, and we're going to simply call this one phrase A. So what you can now find is a series of random containers nested within a main random container. And if I press that main random container, it is going to randomly choose one of these two line containers, which will then be responsible for randomly selecting and playing back one of the three takes contained within.
It's the bottom of the first. It's the bottom of the second. It's the bottom of the first. It's the bottom of the second. It's the bottom of the first. It's the bottom of the second.
And so on and so forth. Now, let's go ahead and introduce another variable. I'm going to choose yet another group of sounds, so that way I can show how we can then string these together as a group. So I am going to choose this phrase group, which is phrase B, and I'm going to place it inside of here. I'm going to make this into a random container, and this random container is going to be called phrase underscore B, and it will be called line underscore 01, and I need some more assets, so I'm going to go and find some more assets that we can play with, and if I go and look here, I will be able to get to my assets. Yes, there's a lot of assets that make up this project. So we will go and import these assets in here as well. And I will make this into another random container. This new random container is going to be the phrase B line 2. So we will turn this into its own random container called phrase underscore B underscore line underscore 02. And then we will select both both containers, I should say. Phrase B we will then make into its own random container called phrase underscore B. So then what we now have are two phrases, each containing two separate lines, and each of those line containers containing three takes. So we already have looked at our phrase A, and now we're going to look at our phrase B.
One out. One out. One out.
And our line 2 phrase B.
One out. One out. One out. One out. One out.
Yeah, occasionally this does happen where it doesn't seem to get refreshed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the project, I'm going to reopen it, and you'll see that it will replenish the audio that's contained within. It's a little glitch. It happens every now and then. It's nothing to worry about. I'm actually kind of glad that it's happening right in the process of me making this video, so that if it does happen to you, you know exactly how to address this when it does occur. So let's go ahead and take a listen to our first line.
No outs. No outs. No outs.
And our line 2.
One out. One out. One out.
And if I choose our phrase B.
No outs. One out. No outs. One out.
Okay. So how do we connect these two phrases together? To do so, we need to use an additional container called a sequence container. So I'm going to go up to the default work unit, and I'm going to select the sequence container from the icons, and I'm going to call this play underscore by play. And I'm going to name it properly. Okay. Now, a sequence container works in a couple different ways. Previously, we've used it as a method of triggering sounds in a logical order or logical sequence. We've done it in step motion, like for doors that open in previous projects. But in this case, we want to play a series of phrases in a specific order back to back. So what we will do is first set our play mode to continuous mode. The next thing we need to do is we need to bring the random containers, the actual, and I should say the phrase container, not the line container, but the phrase container, into the sequence container part of its playlist. So I'm going to drag that. And when I do so, you can see that the phrase A is now contained right here in our playlist where it has line 1 and line 2. I'm going to do the exact same thing for phrase B, dragging it into the playlist. It's going to automatically populate it on the bottom, and you can now see that our two phrase containers are now placed in our sequence container. And if I now press play,
It's the bottom of the first, no outs. It's the bottom of the second, one out. It's the bottom of the first, no outs.
you might find that it's necessary to add a little bit of a delay between the individual phrases. With that in mind, we can do this in one of two different ways. The first way that we could do it is by using the transitions option here between the two different phrases, and we can set this to a delay and specify the delay in seconds. However, I'm not necessarily recommending that we do that here because this will automatically put the same amount as far as the delay is concerned between each of the phrase groups. Instead, we want to place the delay on the individual phrase container. For example, phrase B, we want there to be a slight pause in between phrase A and B. So I'm going to go up to the initial delay, and I'm going to give this a value of, say, half a second, so 0.5. I'm now going to go back to my play-by-play sequence container,
It's the bottom of the second, one out.
and you can now hear the result. So at this point, what I want you to do is I want you to continue the process that I've shown here for the remainder of the files. To help you with this, I've created an implementation chart, which I'll be going ahead and explaining in the next video.